Hi, thank you for joining me on this video tour of the Brewer's Workshop. Today we're going to be talking about the setup screen. This is where we configure most of the default parameters for the Brewer's Workshop. I'm going to tap on Setup, and this will open up the setup screen, and you'll see there's 6 general areas. The first one is quite important, the general. Starting out with Brewer. Enter your name here, and this is what will be used for all your new recipes as the brewer. And it's also important because in the recipes list, the name is how Brewer's Workshop determines if it's your recipe or not. So you can filter between all recipes or mine, and it will use the brewer name here to determine if this recipe belongs to you. The next batch number is what it says, the next batch that you create, the number it will be. This gets auto-incremented every time you create a new batch or clone a batch. You can set this at any number you want and it will carry on from there. So this just gives you a little more control over the batch number naming parameter. Batch size and boil size are what they say for a new recipe. This is what it will default to. Of course, you can always change it at the recipe itself in the title area. The apparent attenuation is used to determine the final specific gravity, which goes into determining the alcohol by volume calculation. This is used before the specific gravity measurements are actually made. Once they are made, the apparent attenuation is then calculated based on the measured gravities. Monetary units is used in printing the recipe and to determine how it should show cost, price per 6-pack or price per pint, which is also the next parameter. If I tap on that, the printed recipe will show you the cost of your brew, either in terms of 6-pack or pint. Tracking costs needs to be turned on for you to see the price per unit, and this is what the default will be for any new recipe. Manage inventory determines whether or not that recipe will fall under inventory management, which I'll talk about in another session, but inventory management just keeps track of what you have on hand and what you're using in the recipes and creates shopping lists for you if needed. The next section is formulas. For color, we have 3 that you can choose from, Daniels, Morey, or Noonan. And for hop utilization, you can choose between Rager and Tensive. It just affects how which calculational method is used in determining the color and the IBUs. It will affect your degrees level bond and your IBU count if you change it, once it's been calculated. But you can change it anytime, again, from the main recipe detail screen in the title area. If you edit from there, you can change most of these parameters. Now in the mash section, we have some basic parameters. How much mash water we intend to use, basically how thin or thick the mash will be, sparge water, grain absorption. The mash tun thermal mass is used when calculating how much water we need to add for infusions or decoctions. Ambient temperature, again, for diffusions and concoctions. And the extraction efficiency is our base extraction efficiency for our grains, for our brewery. This is used to determine the original gravity based on the grains that we add. And much like the apparent attenuation, once the actual specific gravity values are entered, in this case just the original gravity value, it will then calculate the actual extraction efficiency of your brewery for that batch. And once it's calculated, you cannot edit it for that recipe. So it will take care of it for you. You go ahead and you enter your standard, your normal extraction efficiency. It'll use that for predicting the original gravities. But once you actually enter it in the specific gravity area, it will then back calculate and tell you what your true extraction efficiency was. Kind of a nice feature. In the units, here is where we will decide what our weights and measures are going to be. So for weights and volumes, we've got US and UK units as well as metric. For temperature, we obviously have Fahrenheit and centigrade. For gravity, we can use either Plato or specific gravity. For color, we can use level bond or EBC. And for the salt additions, it's basically liters, gallons, and grams and ounces. The water area is where you enter your local water profile. This is really important for the water chemistry calculation. You need to have your local water profile in there or the calculation will not be accurate. But you enter these numbers here and they will be transferred and used when you start doing your water adjustments. And then finally, the hop types, whether you use whole hops, pelletized hops, whether you put them in a bag or you use them loose. And again, these can always be changed at the recipe level. These are just the defaults for new recipes. Now, one thing I want to mention, and this is true for all the pages on Brewer's Workshop, if you press the check mark, the green check mark, it will save all the changes and go back one screen. But if you don't like the changes that you've made, just check the red X box and it will take you back to the previous screen without making any changes. All right, that's what I had for the setup screen. Thank you for attending.